Hey guys, in this video I'm going to teach you how to replace the touchscreen of the original 3DS. As you can see in this 3DS has a pretty scratched up touchscreen, so we're going to go ahead and replace it. So first you're going to remove the back cover. Remove the battery. There are 10 screws to remove like this plate over here. Oh, I forgot to mention, these are all Phillips head screws. Once you got this off, dump all the screws to the side. Make sure you don't lose any of these. And the L and R buttons are up here, and there's cables that run down to here and over here. So what I do is I remove the remove it from the bottom first. That way you don't accidentally tear the ribbon cables, because they are a pain in the butt to replace. And you know, I generally don't want to create extra work for myself. Oh, I forgot the screw. So you lift off from the bottom. Make sure you're very careful not to damage the two ribbon cables over here for the left and right trigger. What you're gonna do is just lift off, remove the SD card by pressing it in. Now you have two Phillips head screws for the analog stick. Lift it off, make sure you don't damage the ribbon cable. There's two screws for the SD card slot. For now, don't worry about where you place the screws. I'll tell you how to differentiate the screws later on in the video. The next step is to remove the SD card slot. You don't want to just lift it off, because if you do that, you're gonna lift off, there's adhesive under here, you're gonna lift off this metal plate and break it. So what I do is I get like some flat pry tool and get it in there and then lift off. See this adhesive, if you didn't do that, you would actually lift off this metal plate with the SD card slot, and that would damage this. There's two more screws, Phillips head down here. The good thing about the 3DS is this is when Nintendo decided no more tri-wing screws, and just stuck with Phillips head screws. Okay, once you have that off, you want to remove all the ribbon cables from the bottom screen, which is this one, and this one. 3 of them. This is the touch screen itself. When you're lifting these off, make sure you're being very gentle, because you don't want to accidentally flip it too far and break the little clamp. Now you're going to remove the, this is the microphone out of the slot. And then also this is the Wi-Fi card. Kind of just pry it off. Oh, there's 4 more screws over here. Okay, now what you're gonna do is, if I'm only replacing the touchscreen, I don't want to reattach these cables over here, so I kind of just leave them alone, and I work with them attached. So what I'm gonna do is lift from the bottom up again, so I can avoid damaging anything over here. Sometimes if this is the first time a 3DS is being opened, it could be hard to remove this motherboard because there's actually adhesive underneath the charge port over here. So what I do is I pry it up like this, and then I keep my hand over here to protect this area, and kind of just lift upwards like this way to get the adhesive off. And here's the adhesive over here. Now what I do is I like gently set it down, as to not damage this top cable over here. This is the bottom screen itself. It actually has 3 pieces to it: screen, digitizer, or the touch screen, and this trim piece. We're gonna keep the trim piece and just reuse it because there's nothing wrong with it. So you kind of just, you can get your fingernail in there and lift it off. Just when you're prying it off, be careful not to yank too hard because you can actually snap this plastic piece. It's not very, since it's very thin, it's not very durable. There is some double-sided tape on this. You don't really actually need it, so I just take it off so it's a little cleaner. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put it back into place. Now you want to get the replacement touchscreen itself. It's over here. There's usually film on both sides. The easiest way to tell which side is up and which side is down, face up and face down, is you look for this little tab. It's kind of hard to see. Yeah, there's a little tab here. The tab is facing towards you, always. The side with the tab faces you. So what I do is I take the other side's film off first, position the ribbon cable downward like this way, and the thing with the tab upwards. Now I remove the tab and the film and place it into its slot, and it should fit perfectly. I avoid touching the lens itself and only touch where the corners, where the adhesive area is. I'll hit it with some canned air to get any dust out of there. The biggest pain in the ass is if, like, once you put everything together, if there's dust stuck between the touchscreen and the screen itself, it's just gonna have a black speck. Now I just get my nail in between the screen and the touchscreen, and you can pry it apart. It doesn't actually you don't really need to have use too much force. This is like a rare problem that it could have, where the adhesive stays on the screen and doesn't come off with the touchscreen, so I just remove it. Now, as you can see, there's like little bits of the plastic from the screen. Usually it doesn't have that. So I'm gonna use some canned air again, make sure it's all clean. The ribbon cable faces this way, faces you. Put the screen on. Make sure this ribbon cable is out, because sometimes it could accidentally be like this, and then once you put it down, it's going to be stuck between the screens. Now you just do everything in reverse. Flip the motherboard back over. I keep my finger on the screen itself so it doesn't get trapped underneath the motherboard, and put into slide. When you're sliding this down, there's actually a Wi-Fi switch over here. Make sure the outside Wi-Fi switch is in the down position before you put the motherboard down. That way you could like, it's kind of hard to see in the video, but there's like a black switch there. You can still operate the switch. If you put it down wrong and the Wi-Fi switch is up, you won't be able to actually pull the Wi-Fi switch down. It gets stuck on the internal switch. So you make sure the Wi-Fi switch is down before you put the motherboard down. At this point, I'm going to put these 4 screws back into place. And they are the shortest screws. That's the easiest way to tell. They're the smallest screws. The reason I put this down first is because I don't want to like be working and move the motherboard a little and then this switch gets like out of place again. Now I can put the microphone back into place and also the Wi-Fi card back in. It's just a press down. You want to make sure this part lines up with here. And you should hear like a little click when you push it in. Now I'm done with this side completely. Next, I want to make sure that all the cables are out. 1, 2. This one is stuck underneath the motherboard, so you want to gently pull it out. At this point, I can reattach the cables. I like to have this part up because I just feel it's easier to put the cables in this way. But yeah, whatever works for you. You want to be very careful with the cable itself. You don't want to actually tear it because then the screen would just break. There's like these 2 little tabs on each end, so I like to just use the tweezer and push down to make sure it's in the right spot. Now you want to open the clasp gently and insert the other screen ribbon cable and close the clamp. You should hear like you should feel a little click when it's completely closed. And do the same thing with the new digitizer or touchscreen. Just be careful not to tear this because it would be a pain in the butt and you'd have to get another touchscreen and redo this whole process. So you have it in, close the clamp. Okay, at this point, I usually test all the consoles before I put everything together because that way it just saves me a little time in case like something isn't in the right spot. So I just hold the battery in place and then turn it on. Once it turns on, I usually, oh, yeah, and, oh, okay, it is working. So you just kind of test each corner, make sure everything is good. Okay, it looks good. Now I am going to put these 2 screws back in. They are the second shortest screws. Flip down the SD card. You know what? I forgot something. It's a little easier because sometimes this cable gets caught underneath the motherboard. So before I actually put any of the screws in, I make sure this ribbon cable is free and out. This is the volume control switch, and I make sure I put it in its place. What I want to do to make sure, you want to make sure this switch and this actual switch in here are lined up, otherwise it won't function properly. So what I like to do is I like to move the black switch itself all the way down and then also move the outside switch all the way down so you can fit it into place. And once you got it in place, you can just kind of test it, make sure it slides. But you want to make sure it's in the right spot, because you don't want to close this up and then realize it's not in the right spot and now the volume doesn't work. Next, you want to line up the thumbstick, put the washers in. I like to make sure the thumbstick, make sure the hole is vertical, because this middle piece fits in. So I put everything in the middle and make sure the hole in the thumbstick is actually vertical. If you lined it up correctly, you could just push it in. Now, the two SD card screws are the third shortest screw. And then now the before I put the screws for the thumbstick in, I just turn it over, open it up, make sure it's in the right spot. And these two are the longest screws. I basically like to test everything before I close it up, just so I make sure that everything's in the right spot and I don't have to redo everything. Just flipping it over and testing it takes a couple seconds, and it saves you a bunch of time in the long run. Now you want to put the left and right triggers in. You don't want to use too much force, but you just want to kind of line it up and then push it down. You should feel a little click when you have it in. Now you just got to put the screws back and you're done. Probably don't want to watch me do that. So yeah, that's it. That's it for the video. Good to go.